All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the board meeting. Let's call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could all please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're going to start with, we need a motion to approve the agenda. Has anyone said so moved?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
What took you guys so long?
We were locked.
Doesn't allow us to
muted.
unmute.
All right, you guys with me now?
We're with you now.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, that passes. Next, we need a motion to approve the Board of Education meeting minutes for September 3rd, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. Next, we have Patron Comments. So Janet Sadowski, the floor is yours.
Right. Okay, we have 7 patron comments tonight. So I am going to start with comment number 1. This is from Tracy Robinson, and she says, I have 2 children that attend Lafayette High School. One is a freshman and the other is a junior. Every morning, my kids get up and sit by themselves in their room all day on a computer. They are not getting any social interaction and are feeling isolated. I'm worried about them as I see their attitude toward learning changing on the downturn quickly. I also am extremely worried for my son that is a junior at Lafayette. He is dyslexic. Learning has always been a challenge for him. He sits in his room all day trying to do his work without any support. He doesn't want me in there as he really wants to do it on his own. I see the work he is turning in and he clearly is not getting the support he needs. He needs to be in school where he can have a teacher looking at his work, making sure he understands what he needs to do. He only has 2 years left to get this help so he can be self-sufficient enough to go to college. I'm afraid that he is falling behind and this will impact his chances to go to college. Please help our kids get back to school. Their mental, physical, and educational health is at risk. From a very concerned parent, Tracy Robinson. Patron comment number 2. Good evening. I want to thank you all for beginning to plan to bring our kids back to school. My son is 8 and is very much looking forward to getting away from the screen and back into class. However, since the last board meeting and the press conference that followed, I would have expected you all to have presented parents with more details and options by now. The fact that we haven't been told anything more yet is concerning. I would encourage you to poll parents and teachers as soon as possible about who wants to return and who feels it isn't safe to do so yet. Another thing that still concerns me as a Rockwood parent, I learned from a teacher this weekend that the district provided our elementary teachers with a meager 1.5 hours worth of training on Canvas before school began. This was not enough at all. We are now 3 weeks into using this system, and from my personal experience, teacher comfort level with Canvas is still not there yet. Technical issues with Canvas and Zoom still interfere with every school day. Today, a teacher told me that she was dying because a Google form wouldn't work properly and she couldn't get Canvas to work at all. Our teachers are at their wits' end. My son, who is 8, was blocked from all modules in Canvas one day last week and no one could figure out why. I feel that the person on the district staff who thought an 1.5 hours of Canvas training for our teachers was enough, and from that, our teachers should know enough to provide tech support for parents and kids should be ashamed of themselves. Frankly, I think whoever you are, you should lose your job over the mess that was the Canvas rollout. Moreover, our teachers deserve more money if they are going to do tech support going forward. Please continue to work to improve parent confidence in our district's planning abilities, because right now I still have a lot of doubts and fears. Thank you for your time. Signed by Sarah Simpson. Patron comment number 3. Is from Ryan Tinker regarding resuming in-person classes. This plan is rushed and violates the district's own criteria laid out in the email dated August 28th of 2020. Cases continue to rise. Counties surrounding ours, like Jefferson, are seeing large increases. People in this county are not taking this pandemic seriously. Going back to in-person schooling threatens the children and teachers, and what will happen when several teachers have to be out for an extended period of time. This plan should be tabled. Patron comment number 4. Good afternoon, Rockwood School Board. After watching the September 3rd Board of Education meeting, I've been wanting to reach out to you to let you know how much I have truly valued the Board of Education putting the health and well-being of our students, our teachers, and our community first. I know you've been making very hard and gut-wrenching decisions that are unpopular, and I have been gratified by your actions in the face of terribly condemnation by some members of our community. My 5th grader watched some of the September 3rd meeting with me and wanted to email and communicate how much he prefers the virtual learning opportunity to being in school. He is thriving. My 3rd grader appears to be doing well, and we are finally finding a groove now that we are into the full list of full class and small group Zooms. Just after 12:30 today, my 5th grader came to me and said kindergartners are going back into the school buildings on September 30th. I found nothing on the website to validate this statement. While crafting this email to you, I received the 1 o'clock communication about the decision to bring K2 back into the buildings. Thankfully, my children are not affected since we have only this week started to find stability with Rockwood's expectations for my children. Every family is different and has different needs. Ours is for stability, and that is why we earnestly hope you will continue to offer the online education program. With both parents working full-time from home, the disruption of getting a phone call for every cough, sniffle, and runny nose and unknown expectations Rockwood has around symptomatic kids drives us to the decision for virtual learning. It isn't ideal, but neither is the instability we expect from a potential return to school, completely setting aside the health risks to our family. Thank you for the work you do. I know it is often thankless, and I most sincerely thank you from the bottom of my heart for your service to our community. Signed by Andrea Jones. Patron comment number 5. Good evening. As we approach a full month of virtual learning, I would again like to state that the board and administration of this district have appeared to have failed our children again. It has been over a month and still hot spots are nowhere to be found. The best this district can do is invite the student to attend an individualized learning center where a guardian or a parent must stay with them the entire time. The solution is not practical for those who must continue to work during the school day. In fact, the last correspondence on the matter was September 2nd, almost 2 weeks with nothing to report. No update, nothing. Canvas still continues to be a problem, so much that teachers are no longer utilizing it, thankfully. While it's laudable that the response team has decided that our younger learners will be attending school sooner rather than later, it does not address the emotional toll it's taking on those learners who are supposed to be developing learning and study habits, specifically those in the later grade and early middle school age range. I've witnessed firsthand the depression and hatred towards virtual learning. My very own children who think they are dumb or stupid because they cannot seem to figure out how to navigate the virtual atmosphere. They lack real interaction and real face-to-face classroom learning. I am holding hope that tonight this board will lay out a plan of exactly when each group of learners will be allowed back in the classroom. I feel the majority of parents want hard facts, hard dates, and plans. We will no longer settle for soon or in the future. We are tired of holding our children as they fall asleep crying over virtual learning. We will speak up for our children at whatever cost is necessary. Lastly, I want to commend our classroom teachers for trying to hold this sinking ship upright. Without their dedication and professionalism, this virtual world of learning would be more chaotic than it already is. This administration should be praising these teachers as they are the only reason this back-to-school plan has any resemblance of learning. And that is signed by Matt Mathis. Patron comment number 6. As we look at the return to school for children in our district, we are writing to ask for an increase in transparency regarding planning and policies. Regardless of our personal beliefs on whether we should be returning right now, our family, like many others, would like clear and timely responses to a number of questions that have yet to be addressed. We understand that more information will be released shortly, and we are hopeful that the district has already anticipated and formulated a plan in response to each of these questions below. What are the specific district-wide safety protocols at all schools at all levels must adhere to? How often will district representatives be present in buildings to check that all protocols calls are in place and being met? What plan is in place to replace teachers who will be quarantined, possibly multiple times once students return? What specific training and preparations will teachers receive from the district to ensure consistency and competency for our students? What forum will be used to communicate the number of cases of COVID, both the students and staff in the district, and how frequently will the numbers be updated? What is the threshold for cases that would cause a return to virtual learning for all? Thank you for your time and attention to these questions. We look forward to the release of a plan that engages our students, parents, and staff through transparency and open dialogue. Sincerely, Greg and Megan Burian. And patron comment number 7. Rockwood School Board. We would like to thank all the teachers and staff of the schools in the Rockwood District for all they have done to make the start of the year a success in spite of the challenges of the current pandemic. We have 3 children currently in the district. We have not gone more than 2 weeks since the beginning of July without a change in school plans, and it appears that will likely continue for the balance of the semester with the announced move of K2 in building online option beginning September 30th. We have concerns about the quality, delivery, and focus on curriculum for those children that choose to remain with online learning when online in-person options start on September 30th for grades K2. To date, the details surrounding the continued online options have been absent and misleading. A sizable percentage of online student increases the chances of success for the in-building option during a pandemic. It is beyond comprehension that in a district ranked as highly as Rockwood that we are 10 days away from this transition and not one administrator, principal, or teacher can specify what learning for online students will look like. We have and will continue to select the online option to provide routine and consistency for our children. The every 2-week district announcements and changes to the in-person learning continue to derail the quality and consistency of the online learner. That's signed by Fred and Carol Oschlager. And that concludes the patron comments for tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Sadowski.
You're welcome.
Next, 6.01 Superintendent Board Comments. We'll start with our Superintendent, Dr. Mark Miles.
Thank you, Mrs. Mondel. It brings me great pleasure this evening to share that we'll begin welcoming Rockwood students in early childhood, kindergarten, and grades 1 and 2 back into our school building starting Wednesday, September 30th. We'll also be establishing timelines for the transitions of grades 3 through 5 back to school very soon. We realize that every family has decisions to make about the best educational option for their children, and our families have a variety of unique needs. This is why we'll continue to offer online education for kindergarten through 2nd grade families who choose to remain at home as our students return to our schools. Tomorrow, we'll be sending emails to our families in early childhood and kindergarten through 2nd grade, asking them to indicate which learning option their children will pursue starting September 30th. And parents will have through Monday, September 21st to submit their registration. I appreciate all of the work of our administrators, teachers, and staff members in preparing for this transition. And I look forward to beginning the process of welcoming our students safely back into our classrooms. And there'll be a variety of details provided in that information disseminated tomorrow. Second, to support our students' gradual return to in-person learning, we've convened a rapid response team approach developed by the district's Research, Evaluation, and Assessment Department that will help guide Rockwood's decision-making to benefit our students and staff. We have response teams analyzing 4 main topics: district and school readiness, schedules and staffing, health and safety measures, and student, community, and staff education. The response teams will report recommendations to a leadership team, which will consult with an advisory team and provide timely coordination of school and district level supports during this phase-in plan. The rapid response teams began meeting last week, and we'll hear updates on its progress from Director of Research, Evaluation, and Assessment, Glenn Hancock, during tonight's meeting. Thanks to a USDA waiver program and our Child Nutrition Services Department, Rockwood is now able to serve free breakfast and lunch for all of our students and others in our community ages 1 through 18. We were first able to offer this free service starting Monday, September 14th, and the program will continue through December 31st or until the USDA program funds are depleted. As students gradually return to school buildings during the fall semester, all students will be able to eat breakfast and lunch for free during the life of the program. Free meal distribution for online learners will take place at Crestview, LaSalle Springs, Rockwood South, and Selvage Middle Schools from 8 to 10 a.m. every Monday and Wednesday. School social workers are also collaborating with Child Nutrition Services and Transportation to identify and provide meal service to families who cannot make it to pick up availability. For more information and to pre-register for free meals, please visit our district website. Due to current St. Louis County guidelines and the COVID-19 pandemic, Rockwood has decided to honor our 2020 Rose awardees and retirees virtually this year. The district has created a special video tribute website, 2020 Rose Awards Revisited, dedicated to our Teachers of the Year, Rose Award recipients, Cornerstone Award recipients, service awardees, and retirees. Please visit rsdmo.org/rose to view slideshows and videos honoring these special groups of people, as well as a page through which you can send them messages of congratulations. I'd also like to extend my personal congratulations to our deserving awardees and retirees. I want to thank them for all that they have done and continue to do for our children. Last week, we celebrated Parent and Family Involvement in Education Week. As educators, we are always appreciative of the integral role our parents and families play in helping educate our children. This year, as we all work together to overcome challenges we never thought we would face, we are especially grateful to the parents and families in our community for their partnership and for their support. Let's watch as Rockwood educators express gratitude for some of the many roles our parents and families play in our children's learning experiences. I think that's the cue to the video.
Deb may be having some problems. She's having a hard time with her screen. Deb, can you hear me?
We could always come back and play
Yeah,
that video
wait,
at a later time as need be.
Yep. All right. Are you good, Dr. Miles?
I am good. Thank you. That is all I have this evening.
Thank you very much. Any board comments?
I was going to make a quick comment with a little bit of good news. I spent the morning out at the Giving Place today and got to meet our new social worker, Corey Wright, and give her a tour of the space. So wanted to welcome her to Rockwood and thank the social workers and everyone who's working so hard to keep our families well supported. I know our backpack program is running really well right now, and they could definitely use some donations of food. And so I just wanted to let people know that. And thank everybody for their continued support of all of our students and families.
So Jamie, I've had a couple of organizations approach me in terms of, will the Giving Place accept food donations or would they prefer cash donations because of the handling of materials?
They can both be accepted, and food donations can be dropped off at Fairway Elementary at any time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks for the clarification.
Any other board comments? All right, very good. Moving on. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda items as submitted.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
We have one great donation again tonight. It's for Bowles Elementary PTO monetary, $1,432. It's a donation to the school, repayment of bus costs for field trips during the 2019 and 2020 school year at all grade levels. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Dr. Kinder. All right, so that motion is to approve the consent agenda items as submitted. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. All right, moving on to the agenda items. I need a motion to continue to recognize the month of October as Disability and History Awareness Month as outlined in Missouri House Bill 555.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have Dr. Carmen Harris and Dr. Jamie Smith with us. And before I let those ladies speak, our Vice President Lynn Midget would like to read the resolution, please.
All right, thank you, Laura Lee. A resolution designating the month of October of every year as Disability History and Awareness Month and encouraging our schools to provide instruction on disability history, people with disabilities, and the disability rights movement. Whereas there are approximately 132,000 students with disabilities educated by Missouri Public Schools, and whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 is founded on 4 principles: inclusion, full participation, economic self-sufficiency, and equality of opportunity for all people with disability. And whereas the method of promoting these 4 principles is for our schools to recognize the contributions by people with disabilities to our society and provide instruction in disability history, people with disabilities, and the disability rights movement through school curriculum, school assemblies, and other school activities. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the school board of the Rockwood School District that the board urges our schools to provide intensive instruction on disability history, people with disabilities, and the disability rights movement, especially during the month of October and periodically throughout the school year, and encourages others to conduct and promote educational activities on those subjects.
Thank you, Lynn. Ladies, take it away. Jamie.
There you go.
All right. Sorry, I thought I hit it. Just wanted to say thank you for reading that resolution. Every October, we bring this to you, the meeting before the month of October, and it's our pleasure to continue working with Special School District. Dr. Harris and I partner very well together and work diligently to work with our building administrators to encourage those activities within the buildings and to support all of our learners to thrive in our schools. Even amid these changing times, we're working hard to find activities that meet the needs of our students.
Thank you very much. Thank you both for being here tonight. And again, that motion is to continue to recognize the month of October as Disability and History Awareness Month, as outlined in Missouri House Bill 555. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you. All right, next we have 8.02 transportation update. We have Paul Northington, Mike Heyman are going to take it away with a presentation. Gentlemen.
Yes, good evening. I think we have a little presentation here to share. But just while we're pulling that up, it's been a few months since we shared a transportation update, and now we have 4 years experience of bringing transportation in-house. We have a pretty good track record, and I think you'll see that the board decision to bring transportation in-house a few years back has proven to be a very good decision by the board. And at the same time, I also want to acknowledge that we have a great team within the transportation department with our drivers, our monitors, our mechanics, and our office staff, and certainly glad to have them now as part of the Rockwood team. As we go through the presentation this evening, I'm going to have Mike Heyman share some of the successes that we've experienced after bringing transportation in-house. I will then share some cost analysis and then turn it back over to Mike to provide you with some fun facts, and we'll open up to any questions afterwards. So without further introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Heyman and talk about some of the successes of the program. Mike? Mike, are you muted?
Oh, I'm sorry. Here I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, and Mike, take 2.
Okay. I want to share successes over the last 4 years with everybody, and good evening. Some of the things we've improved overall service to the district. Bell schedules. If you remember, we changed the bell schedules. We reduced our routes by 12 to 9 minutes on area, and we were able to accomplish that and still move the 13,000 kiddos every day without adding any routes for the district. We just increased our efficiencies. The service, we've added services to the VIC activity routes and Summer Academy. We started doing summer school, which we'd never done before. I think that was well received by the parents, by the way. Maintenance. This is something that's really important coming from a school bus industry standpoint. Service. The one thing that stands out the best, and I think we need to be proud of, is we are the largest district in the state to ever receive a 100% on our state inspections. Over the last 4 years, we've averaged 99% effective, which is 10% over the average of the state. We added a new bus parking lot in Eureka, so we no longer have to lease a facility. We have an excellent facility down there. If you haven't seen it, please go down and visit it. The transportation department has been busy since March trying to figure out what direction we're going to go as a district. We rerouted the district several different ways to accommodate different ways of going back to school. And I will say this, it's going to be seamless. It's going to be seamless. We have an excellent plan set up. It basically will mirror last year. The kiddos, it would just fall in place. As we add 3 through 5 to the elementary routes, it'll be seamless. The driver's community relationship, I gotta tell you, you can't gauge that, but if you're in my office and you feel the phone calls and you talk to enough parents like I do and my staff does, you sense a stronger belonging to the district being in-house. And I think that's important. I think we're being very successful gaining the trust of our parents and the confidence that we're taking care of their kiddos. The Fleet Excellent Award, if you see our buses, there's a sticker in the windows, the first window on the passenger side. And that is a reward that we receive from the state every year for the 95% or better scores. We have not had a year go by that we didn't receive that. So 4 years consecutive, then there'll be a special award for us next year when we're 5 years consecutive. Overall cost savings to the district, we run a tight ship. We take care of business, and I think you'll see later with part of Paul's presentation that holds true. That's some of our successes over the last 4 years.
Okay, next slide, please.
Paul? Yeah. Oh, I think you got the next one on cost analysis.
So here's a cost analysis of bringing transportation in-house over the last 4 years. And as you can see, transportation budget hovers just under 10 million, last year 9.7 million almost. And we break that down for K-12, which is right at 9 million. And we receive state funding for a portion of our transportation costs. Basically at the state level, we get a little less than 25% reimbursement based on these costs. On the early childhood side, those are all reimbursed at 100%. And the other thing to note is some of the footnotes down below. These total expenses include some of these items noted: purchasing of 5 buses in 17 or 18, and then started the bus refresh item number 4 in September 2019. So that includes the lease payments associated with that. So this includes not only day-to-day operating costs, but also any capital costs associated with it. And if we'll go to the next slide, we can kind of compare how that looks versus the estimated contracted costs that we had when the district was at first student. The district received a proposal for first student in that base year 16-17. That's what those costs would have been. And the contractor had a 2.39% escalation clause. So we increased the contractor cost by 2.39% going forward, and then compared it to our actual cost over the last 4 years. And as you can see here, the district has realized savings each of the 4 years. At a minimum, it's been over $500,000. And over the 4-year period, we estimate that the district has saved about $2.7 million, bringing transportation in-house. And the other thing to note, to Mike's point, not only have we reduced costs, but I think we've also improved the service. So next slide.
Okay, I've got this part. In-house service of our fleet and maintenance. I think this is something that was kind of an added benefit. The in-house service of our fleet, our white fleet. This is our maintenance vehicles, our grounds vehicles, custodial and warehouse vehicles. This provides a cost savings as well as a routine schedule, preventative maintenance schedule that for the first time our district white fleets have had. We actually monitor every vehicle by mileage, and that mileage is recorded, and we have periodical, based on the miles of the vehicle, periodic things that maintenance wise that are checked. So they bring the vehicles in. The cost savings, just doing from a budget standpoint, comparing it to the year prior, the 16-17, or I'm sorry, the 17-18 school year, there was a cost savings of $57,773 over what was spent the prior year. And then last year, which was a shortened year because we were out of, for 43 days, was $43,488. Another hidden benefit that I see here is this cost will continue to go down due to the fact that when you take your vehicle to an outside service, you say, hey, the brakes are squeaking. So you know what? They just look at the brakes. When one of our fleet vehicles comes into our shop in Rockwood, we check the entire vehicle out. We head off problems that the driver doesn't even know are happening. So we're doing preventive maintenance that's preventing things to happen down the road that would cost us more money. Not to mention the safety of our white fleet vehicles is probably at an all-time high right now. And also another benefit is the positive attitudes we're getting from our technicians. Those that drive these vehicles have very good things to say to our mechanics and to me as well. I see them when they drop their vehicles off. And so it's becoming a good part of Rockwood, and it's working together, and it's making things happen, and to a total benefit for the districts. I think it's been a good plan, and working with the maintenance, grounds and custodial warehouse, it's been fantastic.
Okay, next slide, please. So FY21 Outlook, some things we're continuing to monitor is transportation funding at the state level, along with other state federal funding. Bus refresh, we started putting our bus fleet on a rotation schedule to where now we're rotating out 20 to 25 buses a year to keep that rotation schedule based on an 8-year schedule. We're also transitioning our fleet from diesel to unleaded. We've seen some cost advantages to doing that. And in light of that, we've installed a new unleaded fuel tank at the Wildwood bus lot that just became operational a couple of weeks ago. So those are some things that have transpired here recently and what we're looking at going forward. If you go to the next slide, really some challenges, really nothing new here. Statewide and nationwide driver shortage. However, we're going to start the school year with a full fleet of bus drivers, but it's always an ongoing endeavor, and continuing to monitor state funding. Again, state transportation costs are only reimbursed at a level of something less than 25%. And that number several years ago was at 75%. So we've seen continued reduced funding at the transportation level for quite some time. And then the last slide, before we get to questions, are just some fun facts that I have Mike hit real quick. It's just some did you know kind of stuff. Mike?
Okay, thank you, Paul. Yes, did you know that we run 149 daily regular education home to school routes? 126 of those 149 routes are 3-tier routes. They do middle school, high school, and elementary. Our average daily transported student ridership is 13,380. Our total miles traveled throughout through 3/12 of 20 was 1,382,000 miles. Total miles traveled for fiscal year 18-19 was 1,891,000 miles. Our cost per mile is $5.84. Just some good stats there. Our mileage was down last year, obviously, because we didn't have the last 43 days of school, but we moved the district.
So open it up now to any questions from the board. Yeah,
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
One, on that mileage, does that include extracurricular miles that the buses have for transportation?
Yes,
Mike?
that
It does.
Okay. My other question, if we go back to the slide that had the benefits, the savings benefits from the 3 years, there is my question is that I see that there's like almost a $300,000 difference between 16, 17 and 19, 20. Is that because of the 300,000 of new buses we bought?
Yes, that played a large part into that.
Okay.
Good observation.
I suspected that. I just wanted to make sure that that was why that was considerable drop. And that will continue as we do this replacement piece?
That's correct. So in 1920, when we did the first cycle of that, that includes the lease payments associated with the purchase of that 35 bus. And that the annual lease payment was a little over 100,000. That's incorporated into those costs, Tammy.
Thank you. Just one clarification. Thank you.
Good question. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Any other questions?
Oh, I have one. I have one question. Are you going to republish the routes before you start the K through 2? Are you going with the routes you published earlier, or they've been modified, or what?
I'll let Mike speak to that.
The routes are exactly the same. The footprint has not changed since last year. So the routes are exactly the same as that were approved earlier in August.
Can you get that information out? Because there may be some grandparents like me that don't remember the routes. So that
Sure. Yeah, that can be out. We can take care of that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen. Very good.
Thank you very much.
All right, next is 8.03, rapid response team presentation. I know it's a bunch of people, but we're going to start with Glenn Hancock, who I believe is going to lead us through this.
Excellent. I'm not sure who's sharing at the moment. If I could take over sharing, I'll share the slide deck here. I just need someone to stop sharing. And then I will share. But while that is happening and getting that pulled up, I do want to thank you for the time. I'm excited to be here and share an update on our return to school in person plan. I'm joined also by some of our team leads that have been working with our teams or our response teams to help create and develop and revise the plan that has been out there and update one for our in-person return. Tonight, joined by Dr. Amy Digman, Andrea Darman, Corey Lusek, Chris Davis, Hector Ramirez, Laura Baker, Dr. Renee Trottier, and Dana Thorne, who have been very instrumental in helping us to develop our return to school plan with our rapid response teams. And I am in the middle of sharing my screen here.
And can I just say one thing that I left off? COPE is going to facilitate, I guess. Jamie, wherever you are, you want to talk about what we're going to do the chat again?
Sure, Glenn, if that's okay with you, rather than having a lot of questions throughout, we'll just save any questions for the end. And people can input their questions to the chat. And if you guys want to look at them there, that's fine, or we can help facilitate that too.
Excellent. Thank you. That'll be very helpful as we move through here. Also with us tonight, Dr. Dave Cobb, who's been a big part of working with our rapid response teams as we've been moving through these areas, with also other members of cabinet supporting us along the way. The back to school information that Dr. Miles shared last week with returning to school with our K through 2 shared some feedback that began being collected through a community event where we had Dr. Orscheln and Dr. Newland present information to patrons and staff members of the district, and shared that Rockwood has strengths and there's definite need to balance some decision making with bringing students back and ensuring health and safety requirements. And then we have unique challenges due to the size and our continued efforts to provide in-person and online education for our students. To move forward, as I went through the comment cards and began to work with our staff, that it was clear that we needed to help develop a detailed plan to share our way forward with returning to school in person. So utilizing our educational research partner, EAD information and research, began to develop and put together a way with our team to meet the challenges that we're facing. And some of the challenges we're facing are in terms of the continued need to provide the online and in-person education that we want to make sure we're meeting the needs of all of our families. But this graph just quickly represents when we took the quick pulse of our families and when we were beginning to return in the reduced capacity format, shows the difference between some of our schools needing only 14% of their students needing an online education, whereas we had schools all the way up to more than 50% of our students needing an online education. And having the ability to support both across every school in the district is it's a unique challenge with the size of our district, but it also shares the commitment we have to ensuring we're providing and meeting each of our families' needs. Couple that with also differences in when we return in person. When we return in person now, we're going to be utilizing new mitigation measures to prevent the spread of COVID, practices and procedures that'll be new, that our buildings will be working to implement on a regular basis. To help meet these challenges and prepare, we began to implement a system of support for our district. That system of support included combining our Rockwood Cabinet and Board of Education as our decision-making body and reviewing information, followed by an advisory panel to help provide additional insight. That advisory panel, we were able to have a chance to meet last night, included medical experts as well as parents from our district, parents in our district that work in other schools that have begun to return in person. And utilizing their information and their guidance, we were able to begin adding and modifying our return plan. We also incorporated the feedback of our Rockwood Learning Council. This Rockwood Learning Council has been an established group that we have utilized throughout the past few years. It includes teachers, counselors, principals, more than 100. Nearly, I think today on our Zoom call we had nearly about 149 participants this afternoon when we met with the Rockwood Learning Council, and we've been meeting with them to collect their input and feedback as we've been developing our plans. Throughout this process, it's anchored by our rapid response teams. These rapid response teams, as I mentioned, our team leads have been working and facilitating and organizing meetings with our team members to provide a response in 4 key areas. Those 4 key areas that they've been working together to provide responses are district and school readiness. Their essential question, how will we ensure our district is ready and each school is ready to open? So even referring back to one of the comments we heard earlier, they'll have a checklist to go through and make sure we're prepared and ready for our reentry. A team working with enforceable health and safety measures. This team is looking at what safety measures will be required, and not only what's required, but how are we going to respond? How are we going to respond when they're not met? And so that way we can support our students and our teachers as we continue with the in-person reentry. Student community and staff education and well-being. Aside from having the longest title, this group has been working with coming up with ways to support our social emotional well-being of our staff and our students and our families. Not only looking at the social emotional support and well-being, but also looking at the mental health aspects and the continued professional learning that will be needed as we continue to transition, and as we have seen, continue to learn new things as every day is a new adventure. And schedules and staffing. This group has been deeply involved with looking at how we can manage the diverse needs to support in-person and online education. There are many unique needs to supply both. Again, we're in an area where we've never been in an environment where we're supplying both online and in person for the volume that we're going to do here in the future, as well as new mitigation measures moving forward. Our team members were members of Rockwood that are also, many of them are parents of our community as well. And these members are key leaders in their departments. We began with these rapid response teams and with these team members due to the quick nature in which we were going to work. These teams met throughout the school day and even after hours to continue working and provide a response to support the challenges that are in front of us at the moment. And they've been instrumental in not just developing, but using the input from our different groups to continue to modify and improve their plan. And many times these groups were also reaching to outside experts, reaching out to our transportation director, Mike Heyman, reaching out to teachers to help with the support of planning in-person and online education, and continually reaching out in areas to get expertise and knowledge to help craft and revise their plan in a very quick, a quick timeline. Together, this team has been working within a framework. That framework has been to develop an initial response, share that response with our Rockwood Learning Council. Again, a large group of teachers, counselors, principals, instructional technology, curriculum, and data analysts, as well as our advisory panel to get their input and feedback, and then revise the response from the feedback we receive from the RLC and our advisory groups. Finalize this response, and then produce an actionable response that we will then monitor. And we have groups working on procedures to monitor and look over to collect the well-being, the status of the well-being of our students, teachers, as well as families. The timeline, forget the timeline. The commitments, as we began working in our quick timeline, we were committed to providing a quality education for an in-person and online environment. That is important to implement mitigation processes and procedures, that we're going to commit to developing and delivering ongoing training and support for all stakeholders, and continue to offer comprehensive plan for supporting the mental health and social emotional well-being. Together, these components wrap up the entirety of our plan that we want to make sure we're prepared and looking at many scenarios as we begin to re-enter in-person school. As I mentioned, our timeline is pretty quick. We began by announcing to our community our return date so they can begin preparing and being aware of our timeline of the date for return. Tomorrow, we will release our plan with full details, as well as a way for families to select the in-person or online learning options. A tight turnaround for the closing of the enrollment. We're looking at closing the enrollment on the 21st, following up that day and after with our families and providing counts to our buildings as we've seen before in the variety of needs across each of our buildings. The early count of in-person and online will allow us to respond and ensure that we're providing the best in-person and online education scenarios for each student. We'll return, our return to school preparations will continue the week of 21st to the 29th with our return on the 30th here. So as Dr. Miles mentioned, our teams began working last week and have quickly been working, collecting feedback and revising and developing information that will be shared with our community tomorrow on our newly developed website from our communications department. Our communications department is releasing a new Rockwood Safe Together website. That website will include, again, all the information from our rapid response teams to help support the successful reentry and the continued presence of online education. As you can see, there'll be a selection to learn more about Rockwood at home and Rockwood at school and the health and wellness mitigation measures we will be taking. We will continue to update our health indicators as well, our external and new internal health indicators as well. Our groups, our response teams have been at work as mentioned, and the first group we want to begin sharing their information with is the District and Site Readiness team. This team has been working on creating a visual representation of tiered response levels to help convey to our community where we are at within the reentry process. We begin with Tier 1, that is remote for all learners, and it gives a quick overview of the organization, the health and safety measures, what can be expected online. Followed by a Tier 2, we begin our phased reentry. And again, this is a screenshot, but this will be shared on our website, a full outline of what to expect during a phased reentry process. Finally, we'll end up at tier 4, where we return to our old normal. That is the goal, that we return to our full in-person education and back to our old normal. The team also crafted utilizing research and meeting with other area districts that have returned in person and have had success returning in person. They've met with those districts, looked at the research, and developed a very comprehensive school checklist to ensure a site is ready. Each school will be given the checklist so they can begin to go through. It covers everything, as you can see here, from communication and messaging to what to do at restrooms, restroom responses, hallway procedures, lunch, recess, gym, large space procedures, and a very full document that will be shared with each of our principals to work through and ensure that their site is ready to go. Their school site readiness checklist, as you can see, a couple of these items mentioned: develop or ensure. Our enforceable health and safety measure team, we're beginning to develop the in-depth portion of that checklist. The health and safety measures team has been working and meeting with health officials as well to develop monitoring health procedures. How are we going to monitor our internal health and information? Mask and face coverings, contact tracing and notification, procedures for social distancing in corridors, restrooms, cafeterias, playgrounds, gyms, hand hygiene, transportation, classroom precautions, and cleaning procedures. This group also had members of our staff that were responsible for developing our responses in the event one of these items are not met, or we need to help have a successful response to meeting our health and safety measures. In addition to the health and safety measures, another key team that has been working is our staffing and scheduling team. This team has been working with the very important task of helping decide what it looks like for in-person and online education. Tonight, I'm fortunate enough to have Dr. Renee Tertier here as well, who has been leading that team and working with that team very closely, as well as working with the Rockwood Learning Council. And so I'm going to invite Renee here to share a little bit of information from the response from this group.
Thank you. This group has spent a lot of time really trying to work through the best way to serve the needs of our students who are going to be returning to the school building, as well as those who are going to remain as at-home learners. Understanding also that these plans need to be fluid to allow for, in case we have students who might have to quarantine or be in or out for long term, such as 14 days, coming back and forth. So if you go ahead and flip that, Glenn. So these bullet points here are really from National Quality Online Teaching Standards. And when you really look at quality online instruction, it looks a lot like in-person instruction in the sense that the tools are important, those instructional strategies, that classroom community, higher order thinking skills, meeting those needs of unique learners and providing additional support where it's needed, assessing and communicating student progress along the way. And so keeping those in mind, we want to make sure that we keep that quality online teaching intact. So there will be a change because one size really does not fit all. So as our schools go back into the building, we really want to provide as much continuity as possible. The transportation department has been amazing, with their bus routes and the success that we've had there. Our schools do start and end at different times. And then as you saw on an earlier slide, and there was a question in the chat from Tammy, that the number of learners at home will really vary by school. We have some schools who have very few learners who will remain at home, and they expect to have most of their students coming back in person. But if you notice on that graph, we have some schools where in August, when parents had the choice, it was close to 50%. And so that's a very different need from one building to the next. And then we also have schedules that are different in our building just due to our specials. So for example, you might have a school share an art teacher. So kindergarten doesn't have art at the same time across the school district because of their staffing and their individual school schedules. So one thing that will change is it's not really possible to have one district-wide virtual schedule the way that we have right now. So I'll let you switch that, Glenn. Okay, so really what we're going to is a collective responsibility model. And the term collective responsibility is not new to educators. That's really part of our professional learning community process. And so to have collective responsibility for a group of students, that's something that we hope is in place right now. So if Dr. Willett and Glenn and myself all taught third grade together, and the success of Glenn's students that are not in my classroom are just as dependent on me and our collaboration as a team, where we work together to agree on what our students are going to know and do, agree on how we'll assess them, agree on how we will respond when students aren't learning, and agree on how we'll help students who actually already know material before we present it. And so that collective responsibility has been it's been a fabric of our Rockwood school and our grade level teams. I know my kids graduated from Rockwood, and I can remember going to curriculum nights at Fairway, and no matter who their third grade teacher was, I typically met all of them because they would work together as a team to talk about what the education was going to look like that year when my children were small. And so the collective responsibility really takes into consideration the needs of our students and making sure that they have that high quality education, whether they're in person or online, that honors the strengths of our teachers, and that really honors those communities that we've built. And so, we are, about a month into school, pretty close to that. And so there are communities built in classrooms already. At the same time, we need a plan that has flexibility, taking into consideration that our buildings have unique needs based on the populations at their school, based on their start and end times, and the percentage of at-home learners that they'll be serving. There's unique teacher strengths in each team, and there's always that changing environment. And so we are actually preparing for our fourth back to school. One of our principals smiled and said that earlier. This is my fourth back to school since we really did intend to return in person originally, and then switch to that hybrid model, then online, and then now we're coming back after being out. And so the environment, may change, unfortunately, as the health indicators of our community change over time. So Glenn, you can go ahead and switch that. So basically, this is how it will look. So buildings and grade level teams are actually going to be working together to take collective responsibility for students at their grade level. They'll be working to meet the needs of those online students. And because of that, that model might look different from one building to the next, or even from one grade level to the next. So as a committee, the first thing that we considered, of course, is a Rockwood Virtual Academy. It makes sense to say, we're going to have students who are in person. We are staffed. Our school buildings are staffed as an in-person institution. And then to say, we also need a virtual academy to meet the needs of our at-home learners. And that sounds great and is what we would love to have. However, doing that at this point really would be very disruptive to our school communities. In order to make that happen, we would have to pull staff from existing schools. So if Dr. Kinder, is a very talented online teacher, and we had to pull him to teach online, and we had to pull, Dr. Midyet and bring them in to be online teachers, then their classes would have a new teacher that would be hired. And we were disrupting the communities of the buildings that they're in. We're disrupting their seated learners, and we're also disrupting virtual learners because then they'd be coming from all teachers' classes along across the district. And so that's why at this time, that doesn't feel like a feasible option, particularly also with the quick turnaround that's happening here. There's a great desire at the elementary level to keep classroom communities intact as much as possible. However, we do recognize that to meet the needs of, if a teacher has 10 students that are online and 10 students in front of them, that would be very difficult to serve the needs of both of those populations simultaneously. And so, another item that you might have heard, or that you might have heard some schools in our area are doing, is they just have a camera in the classroom and the students at home watch that. And that's also problematic because the classroom has a lot built into it. Besides the whole group instruction, the small group instruction, teachers working one-on-one with students, there are also transitions as students come in the day and put away their belongings. There's transitions to lunch, and it's not beneficial for a student to sit at home and watch all of those things happening. And so we really wanted to put that in the hands of our talented teachers, working together under the leadership of their building principals on what that could look like. And so here are a few options. And there's a lot of teachers that have been brainstorming this for quite some time. I know Dr. Cobb's been walking into the buildings and talking with teachers as well. So they're at one of our elementary schools, Eureka Elementary, one of our very talented first grade teams was really kind of talking about how they really only expect to have, there might be 1 or 2 students per class that would elect the virtual option. And they really feel that they could serve those children's needs by having that combination where the students zoom in for parts of the lesson. So for example, they might zoom into that seated circle in the morning, and then and when the student, for that direct instruction with the camera just on the teacher and not on the whole entire class. And then when students are working individually, that student goes into a breakout room. So they're working individually. And as the teacher walks around and collaborates and connects with students, then they have that opportunity to pull that student out of that breakout room and collaborate with that student. When there are small groups, then that student can come to the kidney table at the with the computer and for language arts and for math small groups, and then again at the end of the day. And so that might be a very feasible option for some of our teachers. Other places where we have as much as 50% of students online, if Glenn and I, both teach 4th grade, and there are 50% of our students are online and 50% are in person, then we would probably be spending these next couple weeks making sure that students who are currently in my class get to know Mr. Hancock, and students in Mr. Hancock's class get to know me. And so that students can see that together as a team, you have 2 loving teachers working to meet your needs. And it might be that when they come back, those students who elect to be at home are taught primarily by Mr. Hancock, and those students who are in person are taught primarily by me. And so that's kind of that virtual academy within a school that might be able to happen based on the numbers of students. And then there's a PLC collective responsibility approach. And as you get into your intermediate grades, you might be aware with models where students might be served by a different teacher for math, or for social studies and science and ELA. And so in situations like that, our grade level team could work together. So if it's me and Glenn and Shelley all together, we might say that, we're all working together, keeping our classes intact. But that when you look at that responsibility, I think one of the questions was pushing out Canvas lessons and what that looks like. And so one of those responsibilities, we might say that, I'm really going to work on those ELA lessons for all of our virtual kids. And then, maybe Glenn's going to work on those science and social studies lessons, and maybe Shelley's going to work on those math lessons, so that one teacher, we're all working together. Our kids are paced in the same way, but we're sharing that load and that responsibility of pushing the asynchronous part of those lessons out. That's all I have, I think, on that, Glenn. And then I'll check out the chat and I'll see if there are some things that I could answer in the chat. And then when the presentation's finished, if there are more questions, I'm happy to answer them. Glenn, you're muted.
Well, I just said a lot, and it was the most probably informative and valuable thing I've said in a while. So I'm the only one that heard it. I just want to thank you again for the time and sharing that information. I was to say Laura Baker also was supporting the work with you and helping to include the feedback as from our teachers as we develop our response for navigating the online and the in-person instruction. Our 4th committee, the Student Community and Staff Education Wellbeing Group, this group has begun collecting and starting developing ongoing process to collect feedback from, again, not only our students, but our staff and parents. We want to ensure and monitor, because we want to revise. If there's anything we know that tomorrow very much will look different than today, and we want to continue to have the heartbeat, as we're calling it right now, of our community, so we can react and continue to revise as necessary moving forward. So this will be one way that we can begin to monitor our return to in-person and to monitor those that are still learning online. We've shared this information with our Rockwood Learning Council and our teachers, as well as our advisory group, and are collecting feedback to ensure we're asking the most timely questions and getting the most timely feedback as we continue to monitor our response to returning to school in person and to continued online. Our group has also been working with social emotional learning and mental health. It's very important that we're very mindful of the social emotional learning aspects as our students continue to learn online and in person, and the unique needs, the unique supports that they will need throughout the year. And they have worked on developing supports that will be shared. These will be shared in the parent resources section on our newly developed website for students. We'll have resources as well for staff and families. And from the graphic here, hopefully you're able to see that they've divided out into different types of supports that might need, from universal to things that everybody can utilize and take advantage of, to those that might need intensive, possibly rare circumstances that they might need certain supports to help. As we continue to move forward, we will always monitor, we'll always continue to provide new resources and ongoing support for our school community. That includes our staff, students, and parents. So thanks for your time this evening with reviewing our current process and where we're at with our Rockwood Safe Together. We will be posting documents that we shared, full documents and completed documents, tomorrow on our website with the checklists, the information, the mitigation procedures and policies, as well as our current plans for monitoring and moving forward. Thank you.
I know there were some questions in the chat, Jamie. I don't know if you had some that weren't answered, but we're happy to answer any that were unanswered.
Thanks, Dave. And just because I don't have control of my screen much, Glenn, is that the entire presentation? That's what I'm guessing, because I can't click back and forth. So just before I start responding over here, you're good, right?
Yes, we are good.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm going to go through the chat just because to be transparent, so that everybody knows that there have been questions being asked as we've gone along. Normally we just ask all the questions sort of at the end, but we've had some good dialogue going. So I don't know if you guys want me to do that, or Dave, if you want to take it away. If you can see the chat, go, or Renee or Glenn, whomever. I'm happy to do it, but please feel free to however you want to do it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm trying to pick up where we.
I was just going to kind of start at the top, just because I think it's important for people to at least hear some of the questions. So, for example, Tammy has asked what % of students are going to remain virtual if they're sending home a note tomorrow asking parents and caregivers to commit. Many of the questions she asked at the beginning were answered by the slides that went through right after that with the timeline of communication that was coming out.
Yeah, I think we'll use some of the data that we got in the past as a benchmark, but the data that the email that gets it out tomorrow and tracking that data all weekend on Monday, we'll get new data for that. But we think that there'll be some themes throughout our district like there was last time. We're anticipating those same.
And I think that many of the other questions were also summarized with the slide that talks about, Renee, I think you talked about this, the different levels and, you know, really the autonomy of each building to make those determinations by either grade level or classroom or however that determination is made. And so a lot of that communication coming in the communication that people will see tomorrow and in the coming days, but also just from their principals, not district-wide, but there's going to be some differences building to building. And so people should expect that and work with their principals on that. Correct?
Yeah, that's a great point. Once our grade levels get access to the information along with the counselors and principals at each school, they'll start to determine what that online and in-person model will look like. And from there, the communication will take over from the building level so they can reach their parents, so they can best plan and get prepared for that in-person spot, because it will look different. So that communication will have to come from teachers, grade level teams, and principals.
Okay. And then some more questions from Tammy involved daily procedures, cleaning in classrooms, specials rooms, where that's coming from. And the response is also coming in the communication that will be out.
Right. we've been working on a lot of those procedures from the very beginning. Our response team is really, they've putting the final touches on that and getting the teacher voice and the look for all of our stakeholders onto that piece. And so that will be a big part of the website that's created, that gets launched tomorrow, where we're hoping that all of the questions that people have will be answered on that site, including that checklist, et cetera. So
Awesome. Tammy had a question about the delivery of Canvas for K-2 students who remain virtual. And what's the plan for how and who will deliver the virtual learning, and which we went over tonight in this presentation. Renee answered that by talking about the curriculum department is also working behind the scenes on the Canvas templates and working to utilize the Canvas to make the delivery easier for teachers across all these different kind of groups of people, I would guess, virtual versus in person. Let's see, checklists to be shared with parents and caregivers so that they know what mitigation is being put in place. Yes, that is coming and will be shared. And then Tom asked a question about when a family makes a decision in the next couple of days about whether or not they would like their children to be virtual or in person. Are they making that decision for the remainder of the semester? And while it looks like there is some flexibility with that, the ultimate goal is that once you make a selection that you are sticking to that so that we can keep our numbers as accurate as possible. And clearly, if there are issues of quarantine or things like that, that we'll be working individually, again, with your building principals to kind of go through that. Let's see. Trying to see if I've missed anything. Schedules will be communicated to families from the grade level teams once they're established. So look for that, I would assume, between the days of families making their selection and then the beginning, September 30th, the beginning date of return to school. Are we providing phone contact for social emotional learning resources for parents, suicide prevention, things of that nature? Chris Davis said yes. Our website includes many resources, including contact information for counselors, social workers. Looks like much of this information is all going to be put onto these links on the website, which will be awesome. Lynn asked, will the parents have that information tomorrow prior to their decision? Laura Baker says yes, they will receive that information tomorrow. And Alex also noted a story done quarterly on social media, on our website quarterly and on social media, most recently on August 26th, about student health and well-being. I don't know if there are any other questions. Obviously, tonight you presented a lot of information, but we know that we're 2 weeks almost out from students being present in our buildings. And so there's probably continued work being done on all of your teams and within every building to see what this all looks like. Tom is asking, are the teachers excited to have the kids back? So I don't know who wants to answer that because that just came in.
I can answer that for sure. Yeah. I will tell you that our teachers are excited to have them back. In that same breath, with that excitement, teachers become teachers because they're excited to see kids' faces and they're excited to see them learn. So that's why they do this job. But it would also be fair to say that teachers are also, there's some anxiety about bringing kids back, and there's some nervousness because what a classroom looks like in the past for a teacher, it looks different now, and it's going to be different. And we think we know what it looks like, but we really don't know what it looks like until they show up. So they're excited to see the kids because they have that connection with them and they love to see them learn. But in the same breath, they certainly are a little bit nervous about what to expect. And I think that nervousness comes from they want to keep, their students safe, and they want to make sure that they're providing a great instruction. And it just looks different. And so I would say that, yes, they're very excited, but know that it just comes with a little bit of nervousness as well.
Randy asked, can the response team provide more updates to the board a few times a week, which would be helpful, I think, knowing that right now there's no additional board meetings scheduled between now and the first day of returning students. So if there's any way for you all to get information to us, obviously we can be watching the website and looking for all the updates that we see posted everywhere. But just putting that out there. I don't know if there's any more questions from board members. If you want to put them into the chat or if you'd like to ask them at this time. I have a couple that I'll just ask. Dave, maybe you can address this. And I'm just kind of thinking in my head on some of the emails and things that we continue to receive, concerns that parents have that I've heard of, mask wearing and I don't like the word enforcement, but just sort of like monitoring of mask wearing in our schools, things of that nature, and the health guidelines that we have in place. Could you just talk about that for a minute?
Great question. So we know that in order to stay in school, we need to be responsible. So a big part of that responsibility is the use of masks and hand hygiene. So we are going to ask and require all students to wear masks. We also recognize that there may be times where students need to work on that behavior of wearing a mask. So we will reinforce those behaviors and teach students. We've actually had that in the past, and we've been very successful about that. So mask wearing is something that we're going to require for all students. I will say this, we've had since June 15th, about 350 students in Adventure Club. And what has been very compelling is that students typically don't have an issue at all with wearing masks. They're very good at it. They get used to it. It's become very second nature. So we're using our own internal data on that piece of it, where we've not had really an issue at all of our Adventure Club sites for students wearing masks. But yes, it will be an expectation. And if we have students that fail to meet that expectations, we'll certainly work with that student, work with the parents, et cetera, and continue to reinforce that behavior of wearing that mask.
Davey, can I jump in real quick too, that we are planning some professional learning opportunities for teachers in the next 2 weeks, some sessions. Katie's going to lead one on managing stress. I just started talking this afternoon with Sharday Rigdon, our fabulous behavioral expert, and she has offered to do some sessions on helping children become used to wearing the mask, how to work with kids who struggle with the mask, what to say to kids when they aren't wearing the mask correctly. So she has offered to do some of that training with our teachers as well, which I think will be great.
And also just to share, part of our group that was working on the enforceable health and safety measures, they developed a tiered response system in there to help share with teachers to help get that response of wearing the mask as well. And working with Sharday Rigdon, as Shelley mentioned.
Tom asked a question, will there be an open house for the kids and parents to meet the teacher so kids know where to go?
We don't have open house planned for our schools. One of the other things that we want to, encourage is, we're limiting the number of visitors in our schools. And while that comes with a little bit of uncertainty, while open house is a traditional time where parents come in and there's a large gathering of adults inside of our schools, we feel that it's best to do open house in a different way. So I think that our schools, principals, teachers, they'll get together, collaborate on what's the best approach to allow for that open house style or atmosphere where we can provide students an opportunity to know where they go without filling our schools with hundreds of adults, and then with the possible risk of having to now quarantine our teachers, et cetera. So we really want to protect our teachers. And so we will be creative in what that open house feel looks like, but certainly recognize that that's a need. It's a great question.
Thanks. Glenn, did the team who focused on health and safety discuss the health indicators that were laid out earlier before school started about kind of where we're at and what we're looking at, and look at that by age and discuss those things?
Yeah, we began looking at those, and that tiered response chart, we're still in the final stages of connecting this tiered response chart with the degree of reentry in terms of ages of students in there as well. So we're continuing to reach out with Dr. Newland and Dr. Orschland to help get information to support the finalization of that document.
Awesome. Lynn asked, will parents receive information for drop off and pickup?
Yeah, that'll be part of the package, I say, that our principals will be communicating with parents, because not only will drop off and pick up look different in schools, but recess, lunch, hallway, bathrooms, all kinds of different things will look different in schools. So our principals will be finalizing communication to their stakeholders and parents to talk about what to expect, and in collaboration with our teachers and throughout their newsletters, et cetera. So yes, we'll be communicating all of that stuff.
And Dave, if I can add, also, Communications has assembled 4 videos. We'll be releasing probably the last week before we return to school on the 30th. One of them from school nurses is basically just a welcome back video, but it also includes procedures on proper mask wearing for kids. There's a video on Mike Heyman did on school bus cleaning. These are actually videos we did in anticipation of the first day of school several weeks ago. There's one on school protocols, and David Morrison helped me out here. What is the 4th video on? But anyway, we will be releasing those videos on social media the week before we return, and they will be posted on the return or the Rockwood at School page of Safe Together website.
Jamie, I'm
I was going to say one thing, Glenn, and your rapid response. I think it's great that you have a designated web place for everybody to go to, that they go to one spot, find everything they need to know. That will satisfy a great number of concerns that parents have. Where do I go to find this out? How do I know? What does this look like? So I know you've done a tremendous amount of work in a very short time, but putting it all in one place is really going to be beneficial. Thank you so much.
And Tamara, if I can add, Carl Weinrich and David Morrison and Tara Miller headed that operation up. And that Safe Together banner is going to appear on the homepage of our website. It'll be basically, you see the big picture at the top, it's what we call our banner or our hero image. And it will be like the top third of that. If they click on that, it'll say Safe Together. It will
Great.
go to the website.
Great. Put that in social media too, so people know how to drive, so we can drive them to it, Alex.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
I'll also say too, that while the website is a fantastic tool, and we're going to continue to monitor that and make that better, when parents have questions, they go to the website. The website does offer information, but one of the best ways to get information if you still have questions is to call your child's school. And we really want to encourage parents to do that, because we encourage the open dialogue, and we want, the more information we can provide, the less stress we can put on the parent. Sometimes that requires open dialogue with people, and I know our counselors and principals they welcome that. And so the website will be a fantastic resource. But in the end, if you still have questions, that's the best resource is the child's school, because you can get a lot from that phone call. So we also encourage that as well.
Will people be able to ask questions on the website and get answers from the rapid response team?
Alex, do you want to take that one? Is that a website? Are you going to have a form on there to ask on the website directly?
Well, as far as we can certainly arrange that. I don't think the part of the design of the plan was to give people access to the actual members of the rapid response teams. It's certainly possible, Glenn, they could get access to the team leads, I would guess, as far as according to subject matter. But yeah, we can form a mechanism where people can reach out and get their questions answered.
Yeah, I'm not saying that gives them access to the rapid response team, but when they ask a question, somebody will answer them back pretty quick. Somebody keeps tabs on it and make sure they get the answers and respond back.
Certainly.
It's a good thought.
Glenn, I need clarification about what information the parents will receive in the email home tomorrow, because I know parents will be asking will need information to make their decision as far as staying online or go in person. So the information being sent home tomorrow will include what it will include.
Yeah, it'll include information regarding the return, the detailed information. So details on each of these. Our teams have been working through the details on each of the things we showed tonight. And those details will all be on the website. So that way they'll be able to look in detail what it means for at home or at school learning. as well as all the mitigation policies that we will follow, what it looks like in gyms, in cafeterias, and at lunch. So they'll have a full kind of awareness of expectations at home and learning at home and learning at school.
And that will be for their school particularly, because of what I heard, every school is going to look a little different. So it will be for their own school.
So they will have the outline of what, as kind of Renee shared today, they're finalizing that communication of what will be shared on the site, because there is going to be unique differences between each building to meet the needs of their students at their school. That information more specific information of how they're going to work with the students on a grade level will come from their school going forward. Tomorrow's release will have the information regarding the different possible looks that it could have at a particular school, but also all the mitigation measures that we're taking.
So if I'm a parent and I have to make that decision over the weekend, if I don't have all the information as far as like what's first grade going to look like, what's second grade going to look like, what's kindergarten, and how am I going to work through that?
That's a really good question. And that's one of the most difficult parts of this is it's hard to plan specifically for what it's going to be without knowing the counts of how many students need. And so it's our goal right now is to provide as much information as we can. And that one piece we're missing is how a grade level community is going to work and ensure that we're meeting both needs and utilizing the strengths of the teachers on that team. So that's the one part that we need to have. That's why the quick turnaround time to try and get the numbers for at home and in person. So that way we can, again, reach back out and share with our families what this is going to look like.
And I would add that the building principals at Dave's meeting that he had yesterday said they wanted it to be as early as possible, but they wanted to make sure that Monday was available. We're not asking for that Monday morning or Sunday night because they want parents to be able to call their school if they have a particular question. But the bottom line is those grade level teams haven't met yet to determine what that's going to look like, and they won't be able to do that until they have those counts.
And if I can point out, that is available. It'll be open for registration through Monday, Monday at midnight. And Carl even said that it won't be until Tuesday morning that he'll be closing that off. And granted, on Safe Together, the Rockwood at Home and Rockwood at School plans very broadly, generally outline things. We'll still be finalizing some of those details tomorrow morning. And then I know Glenn has assembled a team of team leads and other administrators from noon to 2 for a big edit session in A100, basically making sure, okay, look, this is what we have. We need to make sure all this we're conveying this in the way that we wanted to.
Yeah, and the other positive to this is that our school communities are staying intact. So while there's a bit of unknown, the very important known is that our school communities are staying intact and staying together with this plan in place right now.
So to direct this to Dr. Rebele, is she still on?
Yes.
Okay. How is this going to affect any of our staffing? Will we have, in terms of staffing that are not going to be able to come back live, or that are applying to not come back live? How is this going to affect overall staffing?
Great question, Tammy. And that's a little bit of the unknown also for the same question that was asked about. Parents would know the option that teachers might not know either. So what we've asked is we've reached out to all elementary principals. We've asked that they share with their teaching staff, actually any staff, but we're specifically talking about teachers right now, that if they can't come back for a medical or a child care reason, to reach out to HR, and we'll work through that. Of course, we have federally protected leaves of FML and FFCRA that we'll work through, but we don't know those numbers until those teachers have let us know who they are. So we're working through that and working through with the teachers that we talk to and working with the principal. So we'll just keep apprised of that daily. And depending on what the teacher selects, I mean, they have a couple options, just like you remember at the beginning of the year.
Right.
Some teachers may exercise their leave, and they may take 12 weeks of leave, which is what's entitled under the law, or they may choose an unpaid leave of absence that we would bring back to the Board of Education. So right now I don't really have a good pulse because everybody's just kind of working through it. But we have asked that by Monday, following the same timeline, teachers do their best to reach out to HR and we can help guide them through that process.
Thank you.
Everybody good?
I'd like to extend my sincere appreciation to all rapid response team members. I've often called Glenn Hancock the architect, so special kudos to Glenn, but this was truly a rapid response. All of the work that you've put together and completed in such quick fashion is quite impressive, and we look forward to having our students back in school. So thanks to all of the members of the rapid response teams.
Hey, real quick, did we put out an announcement saying that we need subs still too?
We didn't put an announcement out. We always need subs. So let's put an announcement out right now. We need subs. If you'd like to come work for us, go to the HR, go to the Rockwood website, look for HR, and we'd love to hire you. So, and we have tons of positions. Actually, Lisa Counts and I were speaking earlier this evening, and we have custodial positions, child nutrition positions, some instructional, ISS, home monitor. So please, if you're interested in working in Rockwood, please take a look or reach out to Human Resources.
Very good. Thank you, everyone. It's a lot of faces on the screen. Thank you. Appreciate it. Dr. Miles has informed me that the parent involvement video is perhaps ready. Is that correct, Dr. Miles?
I believe it is. Ms. Kettering, if you play the family and parent involvement video, now is the cue. Thank you.
And no. Let's try this again. Well, let's see.
Thank you, Rockwood parents and families, for always having your children's backs.
Thank you for supporting our school communities.
Thank you for being allies in your child's learning.
Thank you for helping lead the way to your children's academic success.
Thank you for setting an example for your children to follow.
This year, during Parent and Family Involvement in Education Week, we are especially grateful to our Rockwood community members for your continued enthusiasm and partnership in teaching our children. We truly appreciate all that you do to bolster our students' complete educational experience. Thank you, Rockwood parents and families.
Very good. Thank you. Next up, 8.04, proposed agenda for the October 8th, 2020 Board of Education meeting. If anyone has anything to add, please let us know at least a week before the meeting. We are planning on that meeting being back in the annex, back in person. Next, 9.01, future agenda presentations and events to attend. And Google Calendar is still available. Unless there is anything else to add, anyone? All right, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Good seeing you all.